up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Trust Your Boy podcast. My name's Stephen Wright, joined by Mr. William Monroe. Will, how you doing?
Steve, doing well. Especially well after a huge Eagles win last night. Definitely not exactly what I expected. I thought it would be a much tighter game, and Jalen Hurts probably had one of his best performances of his young career so far.
Yeah, the Eagles offense looked good. And Kirk Cousins did your normal Monday Night Football Kirk Cousins kind of a thing.
Yeah, I wonder how much money people can make if they just truly bet on bet against Kirk Cousins in prime time, because he always seems to be favored, and it's all right, well, it can't happen again, and they're a good team and they're playing well, so the money's on them to win, and how much could you really win betting on him to just implode on primetime every time?
Yeah, he's someone I never really thought about it this way before, but he can't win. He'll never win a Super Bowl. Never. If you can't handle Monday Night Football, you are not handling game, isn't that.
Technically, the Super Bowl is a primetime game.
Yeah, it's never going to happen.
Has he made the playoffs?
I believe they made the playoffs with Washington once.
Yeah, I think he definitely.
I think he's made it with the
Vikings.
Vikings.
They had one playoff win recently. But I feel like with the Vikings, you would think he has.
Actually, maybe not.
But technically, yeah. The last time I remember them in the playoffs was the NFC Championship against the Eagles, and that was the year before they got Cousins.
Yeah, that Keenum year.
That was Keenum.
Yeah.
Last year, the Eagles narrowly beat them out. I think they were 8-9. I feel like they've been the just out of the playoffs team the last few years. They're always pretty competitive. You always think they're going to get there, but they end up not.
Yeah, that is surprising. Let me I'm going to look it up real quick to see
yeah, that's an interesting one.
What we got here. So the last time they were in the playoffs was 2019. Yeah, so that was Kirk. So they went and they won in the overtime against the Saints in the wild card, and then they lost to San Francisco.
Okay. Yeah.
And then the
sense.
Keenum was 2017.
I was going to say Diggs had that miracle play, but that was with Keenum. So that was not a thing.
2017 they also played the Saints in the divisional round, beat them, and then lost to the Eagles. Yeah, I do not remember this.
Right.
I don't remember this other one, the 2019 one, but it happened. He only had 147 yard passing yards. Or no, 147 total yards. Sorry. But that was San Francisco and their elite defense at the time. So, yeah, wild stuff.
Yeah, no, that is crazy. But just as crazy as some of these QB matchups that we have here on our Start Sit show today that you got for us.
Yeah, we got some tough ones, specifically with the quarterback positions. Let's go ahead and just jump right in. You have Tua, super hot right now, versus the Bills, also super hot right now, or Carson Wentz versus the Eagles. Who are you taking there?
Yeah, you asked us yesterday, we probably would have sent Wentz. Obviously the Eagles defense and the Bills defense both looked great last night. Tua coming off of the big game against the Ravens, but I think we were thinking, all right, Bills, probably have a little bit, better of a defense than the Eagles do from what we've seen. And, maybe it's a come down game for Tua. The Eagles did not look good that first week. Now, I don't think I could take Carson. It's a home game. I think I'd rather take Tua because, maybe there's turnovers, but I think the weapons are just way too good. And either it's a close game and Tua puts up some points, or the Bills are boat racing them and Tua has to throw the ball a ton. So I think it's pretty easily Tua for me.
See, I think I'm on the opposite end. I don't really like either of them. I'm going to have to roll out Wentz this week. I don't see anything else on our waiver wire unless someone goes Goff. That would be the decision. But the Bills defense has just demolished people.
Yeah, no, they're good. And I think a lot of it is also, the offense gets rolling and then the defense can kind of go downhill. But I think this is going to be a really good test for Tua and the Dolphins. And there's definitely some better guys you can stream. Probably talk about at least one or a couple here. But I actually don't hate streaming Tua this week, and I think I would do it pretty easily over Wentz. I do think that the weapons are there, and I saw something on Twitter. I don't know if you saw it. Someone did like a mirror video of the Tua highlights. So it basically looked like he was a right-handed quarterback, and it was just like, and Tua just looks like the best quarterback in the world throwing right-handed, but he just looks so weird throwing left-handed.
Wow.
I'll see if I can find it and send it to you. But like, it literally looked like he just has an absolute cannon throwing right-handed.
Yeah, wow. That's great. I've not seen it, so you get that over to me.
Yeah.
Next one up here, we got Derek Carr at Tennessee, or Goff at Minnesota.
I like that Goff at Minnesota matchup. I mean, Derek Carr obviously good. Tennessee's defense did not look good. So I definitely think there is potential there. But I like the shootout potential there of Goff in Minnesota. And yeah, once again, the weapons, Amon-Ra, all the weapons there. Whereas I think Renfro got in concussion protocol, so it's really just Adams and Waller. And I don't know. It's close, but I feel like I would lean Goff. I think Minnesota has a better chance of being a shootout in that matchup.
Yeah, I tend to agree. It has the better chance of being that shootout. I think Goff probably has more upside. As we saw last week, like the Lions are capable of scoring a lot of touchdowns now.
This is all before their first round pick this year, the receiver at Alabama.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I mean, this could get even better as the year goes on.
Yeah, they could. So, yeah, I think he's got that upside. I mean, now it's Jared Goff and the Lions. Like the downside would be 4 interceptions or something like that. Where Carr has the upside in theory. He has the weapons. It doesn't happen that often. So I don't think Carr's got as bad of a floor, but his ceiling's capped. So
floor's probably
there. Yeah. So if you're projected to win by 20 points and you believe in that projection, then your Carr's probably your safer bet. If it's close or the underdog, I'd probably go with Goff. But in a vacuum, I'm with you. I think I'd go Goff.
Yeah, it's crazy to say, right? Only 2 weeks into the year, I'm already picking Jared Goff over Jared
For real.
Matchup. The last one here, Carson Wentz at the Eagles. I'm sorry, at home versus the Eagles, and Tom Brady at home for the Packers.
I don't think I could go with Brady with the weapon situation. Godwin's not going to be there. Evans won't be there. They're going to be playing Beasley, who's new to the offense. You never know about Julio. It's just, I don't see the weapons there. So I'll go with Wentz. Easy, I think.
Yeah, I mean, unless we see some people being activated, whether it's Godwin, whether it's, the appeal gets overturned. I think I heard that Mike Evans is appealing his suspension. Unless we get some more weapons there, it's hard to go with Brady. So, I mean, I guess Wentz by default. But this is a situation where I'd be looking for a streamer on the waivers. Like maybe Goff is still there. I would probably add Goff and cut Wentz and just, throw Brady on your bench for the week. Or I would even almost want to start Tua, if he's available. Probably not at this point, even if people aren't going to play him against the Bills. He's probably rostered after last week. But I feel like you might be better off looking at somebody on the waivers than Wentz or Brady this week.
Yeah, 100%. Agreed. Agreed. So moving over to the running backs here, will PPR, Penny versus the Falcons or Breece Hall versus the Bengals?
Yeah, this is an interesting one. Rookie that's starting to get a little bit more work. He kind of disappeared at the end of the game there, but maybe it's just they trusted Michael Carter a little more since he's had that passing down work for a full year now in a clear comeback situation. Or Penny, who I think we're going to start see him ceding work to what we imagine is a more talented back in Walker there in Seattle. So I think I would go Breece Hall. I think, overall he's going to, be increased as we see. And there is some, injury concern with Penny. And he hasn't been able to stay healthy for a long period of time. So you always have that in the back of your mind. But just in general, I'm going to take the upside of Hall there against the Bengals. Bengals need to win desperately. They cannot get to 0-3 if they want to try to get back to the playoffs. I mean, that's obviously not a nail in the coffin, but it's very difficult for teams to get to the playoffs starting 0-3. So they need to win big time, and I could see Breece Hall being used in the passing game again. Obviously, Carter was in at the very end, but I don't think you can keep a talent like Breece Hall off the field. Just like we saw with his teammate there, Garrett Wilson. He's someone that talent's going to shine through. despite Joe Flacco being the quarterback.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I would go with Hall as well. If you look at what he's done so far, week 1 wasn't amazing, but it didn't kill you either. It was a fine week. And then week 2 was real good. Penny had a great first week, and then week 2 did nothing at all. Now, there's a big difference between the San Francisco defense and the Falcons defense. So this very well could be a Penny week. But these 2 weeks show like what I would expect to see for the rest of the year, where Penny, he'll have his weeks, but he'll have like weeks where he'll disappear. Kind of like I was just talking about golf, like the upside's there with Penny, but the floor is not great either. Just because the overall offense and the timeshare and, it can be messy. Where Hall's he's going to have his role and some weeks are going to be average and some going to be above average, but the floor is not going to be 0 like it is with Penny sometimes. So I'm with you. I'm with Hall. It could be a good Penny week. Falcons defense, not the best, not the worst either. But I would stick with Hall.
All right. Brings over to our next running back here. Another PPR matchup, Michael Carter versus the Bengals, or Jeff Wilson at Denver.
Yeah, so this is a good one. Carter, much in the same vein as Breece Hall, just kind of flipped. He had a good week 1 and a fine week 2. Didn't kill you. Didn't win you the week. He was just kind of fine. So that's good. Mm-hmm. Jeff Wilson, I'm on board with. I mean, the 49ers offense is now different than what it was a week ago, with Jimmy G back at the helm. I think ultimately helps Wilson. I think, you can make the case for, both of them helping, but I think more work will go to Wilson in this fashion. And then the injury to Tyrion Davis-Price just further eliminates further competition for him. So I think I'm going to go with Jeff Wilson. Believe in the offense more, believe in his role more. You could also, like I said, the Carter Hall stat lines have flipped. Maybe this is the beginning of Hall taking over. It's kind of too early to tell, only 2 weeks in, but the potential exists, and maybe Carter starts fading away a little bit. Who knows? So I will go with Mr. Jeff Wilson.
Yeah, I'm going to stay in the Flames there. Jeff Wilson, he looked good. He got all the carries, and he lost some competition. I mean, we've got, Marlon Mack now being elevated probably as the running back 3.
Yeah, he was elevated,
off the practice squad. We have an undrafted free agent, rookie as the number 2, who I think probably get some carries, but I think you'll probably see, at minimum 10 carries and maybe some targets, but probably closer to 15 and maybe even more. I think, what do you have, like 18, almost 20 carries, maybe 20 total touches last week. And I think it's going to be more of the same there in San Francisco. It's a guy that they can trust and the only healthy guy left.
Yeah, they may end up relying on Juszczyk more than, a Jordan Mason or a
see that as well.
For sure. I mean, he vultured a touchdown this week. They like using him, and he's a running back in running back mold. So cause some problems.
Wouldn't be surprised if they give him just some normal carries too. I'm sure he practices as a halfback at times as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Next one here, Will. Half point PPR. Breece Hall again or James Conner, provided he plays versus the Rams.
Yeah, I am going to go with Conner. I mean, I want to say Breece, half PPR, but if Conner's healthy and all signs point to him being, himself again, I just think the opportunity is there for an offense that should be high powered. I think they've been, able to score points. They haven't looked great, but they haven't looked bad. So I don't think you can sit Conner for Breece at this point. I think we saw flashes, but we haven't seen Breece, look like the stud that we think he will be at some point. So I don't think he's kind of forced your hand to start him over a healthy Conner. Now, if Conner, is looking limited, or it looks like, you can see some reports he's going to play, but they're going to get everyone involved, maybe, and maybe you want to look to a little bit more stable of a 2-back system there with Hall paired with Carter. But I just don't think it can sit James Conner at this point.
Yeah, I mean, if they come out and say, I don't think they're going to come out and say he's 100%, but if they come out and say he's 90% or whatever, and, he's a starter and he's good to go, then I would go with him. I kind of don't think that's going to happen. The last I heard is they didn't think it was a long-term injury, which makes me think it's definitely like short-term to intermediate. So I would think if he plays, he's going to be limited and it's going to be more of a running back by committee. So it's kind of hard to say, but if they say he's good, then I'll go with Connor. If they're saying like, he's going to start, might have a limited role, I'll probably stick with Hall and just not roll the dice. I wouldn't want Connor to go out there and get whatever 5 carries, and that's his limited role, as we've seen happen from time to time. So yeah, got him on the reports on that one.
Keep an eye on the reports. Then that's what it'll come down to. Now, if we have next up here, wide receiver, we have a full PPR. Brandon Cooks at Chicago or Allen Robinson at Arizona.
Yeah, so kind of the same story we've been telling. Cooks been real steady, real reliable. Robinson obviously had the really bad week 1 and a good week 2. So it's a matter of what you believe. What I believe is the Cardinals defense is really bad. So I'll bet against them and go with Allen Robinson specifically here. That'll be my deciding factor. I do think it's pretty close, but I'll take a Rams Cardinals matchup. So what about you?
Yeah, I think that's probably the more upside play and probably overall. But I think I lean Cooks. I just think he's just so consistent. Even his down weeks are still, you still have such a high baseline. Has he gotten in the end zone yet? I think he might be due. He hasn't scored yet, so 7 for 82, 4 for 54, but 12 targets, 10 targets. I feel like he is, they're due to try to get him in the end zone as well. Obviously, he's been involved, but they're due to try to see if they can get, work him in the end zone, especially, a guy like that, decided to stick around with a team that's, not expected to be very good, help them kind of develop. You'd think they want to reward him. So I feel like this would be a good week to see a touchdown here for Brandon Cook. So I'm going to stay with him just, because of the volatility there, Rob.
Yeah, that's fair. Next up, PPR. You're getting a bonus point in this one, Will, if you have a catch over 40 yards. You want Juju at Indy or Curtis Samuel versus the Eagles?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I don't know that either of them scream, 40-plus yard play, right? You're looking at your, Tyreek Hill, your big speed guys. They both can do it, clearly, but I don't know if either of them, scream that makes a difference here. So it comes down to, the offense there in Washington versus the offense in Kansas City. And, Curtis Samuels looked good, but the Eagles have a really good secondary, whereas Indy's defense is good, but they haven't really proved it. The offense hasn't been there. I guess it just comes down to usage. I want to pick Juju, but I feel like they keep changing who their guy is. Just Kelsey, really. Whereas we've definitely seen those top 3 receivers be involved with Washington. So while it's close and, a couple of signs point to Juju, I feel like, I just trust the usage there and that we're seeing there. Possibly a matchup here against the divisional rival, the Eagles. So I'm going to go Curtis Samuel.
Yeah, I agree. Juju's too much of a roll of the dice, as is MVS and, anyone else in that offense. If you start him, you could be right, but you could be disastrously wrong. And what we've seen so far from Washington is they're using all 3 receivers. And I would imagine Darius Slay is going to get McLaurin, which is going to open up Dotson and Curtis Samuel this week, I would think. So I've liked what I've seen from Curtis Samuel this year. I've liked what we've seen in the past. So I'm trusting him a little bit more right now. So I'll stick with him as well pretty easily, I think.
Yeah. So we'll go over to our last receiver here, half-point PPR, DJ Moore versus the Saints or Jacobi Meyers versus the Ravens.
Yeah, this one I'm not in love with. I don't think I can trust the Carolina offense and DJ Moore enough to put him in, especially when you got to figure he's going to be getting Lattimore. I don't know if you noticed this. His stat line week 1 and 2 is the exact same. 6 targets, 3 receptions, 43 yards. The only difference is he got a touchdown last week. So kind of weird coincidence, but I don't trust it. I mean, if he's 3 receptions for 43 yards again, are you happy? No. Where Meyers, as we talked about in the waiver show, he might not boom, but he's pretty steady for you. He's not going to lose you the week. So I think I'd probably go with Meyers here, given, the matchups and what we've seen so far. How about you?
Yeah, and I think you kind of said it there. It really depends what you need. I mean, Myers definitely is a safer option. We've seen, 6 targets, 4 catches, 55 yards, and a carry there, even for a few more yards in week 1. But week 2, 13 targets, 9 catches, 95 yards, and what looks like another banged up Baltimore secondary. So I think safety's there. I think if you're wanting upside, the touchdown upside comes with DJ Moore. He can get in the end zone one or multiple times. Whereas, unfortunately, we've just seen that consistently Jacobi Meyers is not used in the red zone, and he has been one of those guys that just doesn't score a ton, if much at all. So I probably lean the upside of DJ Moore. I think it's still early on where I'm still starting my guys, and obviously what we've seen so far isn't great, but I think unless you are set everywhere else and you just want more of a safe option in that flex where you have your DJ Moore, then it makes sense to start Meyer. I think I'm still going to go the upside of DJ Moore here, at least for another week, and what looks to be a decent matchup with New Orleans.
Okay, and our final start sit question here. Again, going back to the PPR bonus for 40 yards, it's a flex question. Juju at Indy, Kareem Hunt versus the Steelers, or Garrett Wilson versus the Bengals?
Juju, man, that's tough. I don't know that I can pull the trigger starting Wilson yet, but man, he really looked the part. So it's tough to not say him. I feel like if you want to take like the glory play and the true upside, I guess you could go with Wilson, especially in the game script working your way. But I feel like I would just take the safety of a running back and Kareem Hunt, especially one that catches the ball like he does. You're getting a good amount of carries and good for some targets, and he's due to get in the end zone here soon too. So I'm going to take Hunt here. I'm not huge on Juju in that offense, or Juju and just the consistency of people in that offense outside of Kelsey. So I'll take Hunt here. I mean, definitely tempted with that big play there for Wilson. I think he looks like the guy, and I think he could be one of those receivers that we see step in like a Waddle did last year. I mean, tough to obviously repeat that year that he had, but we always see those rookies that step in and look like they play well and look like they are ready for the league, and that could be Garrett Wilson this year. So close. I'll take Hunt, but I wouldn't be mad to start Wilson.
Yeah, I'm with you. Juju's too much of a dart throw. Garrett Wilson looks to be ascending. I believe he still is third in targets per game. But like you said, you gotta imagine he's going to overtake Corey Davis soon. I would think he just offers something different.
If you keep getting 50 pass attempts, though, I think third in targets is fine.
that is very true. Yeah, fourth is targets.
I don't know we're going to see that for Flacco again, but
yeah, for real. But I'm with you. All the same reasons. I'll go with Hunt if you're cool with Garrett Wilson. Like you want to take a moonshot, if somebody's going to get you 22 points, it's going to be Garrett Wilson, I imagine. But in a vacuum, yeah, I'll stick with Hunt too.
All right. Next up, we're going to the trade options here. We've got a couple of dynasty trades first. Full PPR, aforementioned Garrett Wilson, and a random 2023 first. So don't know exactly where that's going to fall.
Yeah, and I don't know if it matters. This one doesn't make any sense. Like Garrett Wilson was already a first round pick. Like why? And you're seeing good stuff from him. Why would I trade him in for another roll of the dice somewhere in the first round? Maybe in theory it ends up being the 101 and, you get the next great running back or whatever it may be. But it just seems like a lateral move. You just hit on your pick. Why would you cash it in and try again? So I'm easily Garrett Wilson.
Yeah, I think, unless you are like somehow extremely confident it's going to be the 101, which I don't know why that person would trade the pick away, but maybe it's another player, another team that owns somebody else's first round pick, and that team looks clear in a way like the worst, right? And you're going to be able to go out and get a stud running back. I could see why maybe you'd want to do that, especially with the way the offense, could be in New York. But, barring that situation where it's a top 1-2 pick, I would just stay with Garrett Wilson. More likely than not, it's a mid first round pick, and those are hit or miss. We saw here one game. I feel like you're bound to see more of that, and that's just going to increase the trade value that we see with those guys.
Yeah, perfectly fair. Next one's pretty interesting here. Well, PPR 2 quarterback, Darnell Mooney or Kadarius Toney and a third next year.
Yeah, it's interesting. I have Mooney in a dynasty league, and I don't think I would do it for this trade. I mean, we've seen a couple big flash games from Toney, but obviously the start to the year hasn't been great. Start to the year for Mooney hasn't been great either. But I mean, I think there's brighter days ahead for him. We've seen him do it on a more consistent basis here in the NFL, and the third doesn't do a ton for me. So I probably wouldn't pull the trigger on this one if I was the Mooney manager. And if I could get Mooney on the cheap here for Toney in a third, I think I would make that trade. So I'm pretty firmly on the Mooney side.
Yeah, same. I think maybe at this point in their careers, Toney might have more upside based on what we've seen so far, but there's been so many injuries. The quarterback situation is not good for Toney. Daniel Jones, I would imagine this is his last year. Then maybe that's a good thing for Toney. But it's just going to be more quarterback questions where I trust Fields a little bit more in his long-term development. So yeah, I would, I'm in agreement. I will stick with Mooney.
All right. And that brings us to our last dynasty one here. We got a Superflex league. Jimmy Garoppolo or a predicted late 20 or late second, I'm presuming this coming year, 2022 or 23.
Yeah, and in Superflex, it's easy, Jimmy G. You get a quarterback in a Superflex, he's on one of the better offenses in the league. A late second isn't anything, so it's easy, Jimmy G. I don't think there's anything else for me to say about it.
Yeah, I think if if this is pre-injury, maybe you could have swung, I'd say maybe more of a mid-second for Jimmy G, because hey, don't know where he's going to be. I'm going to trade you my mid-second for him. But now that he's a starter for the rest of the year, I mean, you're going to have to give up a first at this point, probably for, what's amounted to be a starter the rest of this year. And, if he plays well, likely going to be a starter somewhere next year.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. So next one here, Will, into the world of redraft. An interesting one, PPR. Jonathan Taylor and Sutton, or Nixon, CeeDee Lamb, and ETN?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I feel like I would go the JT side. Obviously, you're getting a little bit more out of the other side, and I think Nixon's probably been, I feel like he's been the best so far of the bunch here. Obviously, JT had a pretty down week this week, but I think there's brighter days ahead for him. With the Dak injury, I think Sutton and CeeDee is much closer than it normally is. And, I think I'm hoping there's brighter days ahead for that offense. We'll see. But I think, what we're going to see here, especially if Judy's injured, maybe, worse offense for Denver, worse for Russ, but better for Sutton, being just kind of the only option for him. So I feel like I'm higher on Sutton and lower on Russ as of right now. Whereas CeeDee, looked better this week than that first week without Dak, but still it's going to be a limited offense. James Robinson and ETN seem to be a pretty big split. And obviously Mixon's a stud, but, taking the upgrade to JT. So I'll take the JT Sutton side here, I think, pretty easily. It's closer than some of the last ones we talked about, but I think I'm pretty firmly on the JT side.
Yeah, in a vacuum, I'm with you. I'll take the JT side. However, if I am a team that, like I drafted Mixon in the first, and then I didn't draft any other running backs, or I drafted some mid-round running backs and they just haven't worked out. Chase Edmonds was my 2 or something and it didn't work out. Your 3 wasn't anything either. To say, you know what, I have a problem here and I need to solve it. I'm going to change JT into Mixon and an upside shot in ETN, and then Sutton and CeeDee, maybe I see as a lateral. I can get behind that depending on what your team. I feel like it's a tough thing to do in week 2. Like that feels more like a week 4 or 5. I really know what my team is and where my problem is, and I'm okay rolling the dice on like an ETN to fill that spot, like a desperation. I'm 1-3 kind of deal. So like I get it from that standpoint, it just seems early. So I'll go JT.
And this last one here is actually pretty interesting. Redraft 10-team full PPR. Najee Harris, Kyle Pitts, or Dalvin Cook, George Kittle.
I do not think it's interesting at all. I will go with Dalvin Cook and Kittle pretty easily. Najee, we haven't seen it that much this year. You have the injury that, obviously he can play on, but you don't know if it's something that's going to be bothering him all year. Pitts has done nothing, and I know that all too well. Like 2 catches in each game or something, like nothing at all. And you'd like to think they're going to hyper focus on that and get him involved because you really should, but who knows?
Yeah.
Cook is really the piece that I want because his role. Dalvin Cook's good. I'm sure he'll have some bad weeks here and there, but I trust Dalvin Cook. Kittle, I don't really trust that much, especially with all the injuries, but I trust him a lot more with Jimmy G there than I do with Trey Lance. So maybe the Pitts Kittle thing is a bit of a like a washout. You get Pitts who's playing but not doing anything. Kittle who's always hurt. So also not doing anything. But I see an upgrade from Najee to Cook. So I will go Cook and Kittle here. What about you?
Yeah, I think it's Cook and Kittle for me as well. I mean, I could see the argument there for Pitts and Kittle. That sounds like a really interesting Kittle and Pitts. That's a good fantasy name if you have both of them. But I think the Najee to Cook is just a big jump for me that I think most people would trade, especially come draft time, right? A third to drop down to a 5th round pick to move up to get Cook, right? And that's really what you're looking at for Kittle and Pitts here. I think it's a big jump there from Najee to Cook, especially with the injury concern, to, move possibly more laterally the way we've seen Pitts. I mean, obviously it's trading down while he's down and obviously while Kittle's injured. But I think the fact that they haven't played him while he's been hurt, we haven't seen a re-injury, leads me to believe that he'll be good to go once he's back. So I think, pretty easily the Cook and Kittle side.
Perfect. Well, that's going to wrap up the Start Sit show here today. Will, do you have any closing thoughts?
Yeah, good luck everyone here in week 3, and make sure, as we always mention there, you get your flex guys out of the flex spot, your Thursday night game, and put them in the starting lineup there.
Yeah, absolutely. So best of luck this week. We'll see you next week with another waiver and start sit show. And until then, folks, trust your board.